One of the most common execution methods in history was hanging. For centuries, thousands of condemned people were taken to the gallows in towns and cities across the world. These wooden structures were often permanent, standing in public places as a warning. They reminded everyone of the king or queen's power and the harsh consequences of serious crimes. There were different types of hanging. Some prisoners faced the long drop, others the standard drop, and some the short drop. But in certain parts of Europe, a very different and more brutal method existed. It didn't even use a traditional gallows. Instead, it used a simple pole or post. This method, known as pole hanging, had been around for centuries. It was later used in several high-profile executions at the end of World War II. The technique was especially common in regions like Austria-Hungary and Czechoslovakia. Pole hanging was a variation of the short drop, but it involved a more complex and physical process. First, the condemned person was brought to a tall wooden pole, usually around 3 meters high. A rope was tied around their feet and connected to a pulley system at the base of the pole. Next, the prisoner was lifted upward using a sling placed under their arms and across their chest. Once raised, a noose was placed around their neck and attached to a hook at the top of the pole. The sling held their body in place for a moment. Then came the final step. When the sling was suddenly released, the body dropped sharply downward. At the same time, the executioner controlled the fall using the rope tied to the feet. Standing close by, the executioner would often push the prisoner's jaw upward and force the head to one side, increasing the strain on the neck. This action could quickly break the neck. An Austrian executioner in the 19th century claimed this method was more humane than traditional hanging, saying death came faster, often within a minute. However, to those watching, especially during public executions, it appeared extremely violent and disturbing. This method spread to other countries with slight changes. In Czechoslovakia, for example, a similar system was used. Executioners sometimes stood on ladders to perform the final step. Prisoners often lost consciousness quickly after the drop. One of the most well-known cases was Karl Hermann Frank, a Nazi war criminal. He was executed in public using pole hanging in front of a large crowd. But it wasn't only men who faced this fate. Milada Horakova, a woman accused of treason against the communist regime, was also executed this way. Pole hanging continued in Czechoslovakia until 1954, after which executions were moved indoors. In Hungary, the method lasted even longer, with the final use reported in 1988. There, the pole was shorter and the drop was smaller, but the process remained similar. Many of these executions were public, and the bodies were sometimes left on display for a time. In total, around 1,000 people were executed using this method in Czechoslovakia alone. Despite its use in parts of Europe, pole hanging never became common in countries like Britain or the United States, where traditional gallows methods were preferred. From a modern perspective, pole hanging is seen as a harsh and ruthless form of execution, especially when carried out in public. The sight of victims left hanging on posts served as a chilling reminder of the power of the state and the fate that awaited those who defied it.